The following is my conversation with Gerard Vroomen. It's the second time Gerard's been on the show, and this time around we're going to talk about his new investment fund, Fundracer. Fundracer specializes in micromobility startups, and he started the fund just over a year ago with his partners Rene Wiertz, who was the ex-owner and CEO of 3T, and Andy Ording, who was the ex-owner of Zipp and also the founder of Zipp Wheels. The fund focuses mainly on safety technologies like AI collision detection, foldable helmets, as well as bicycle ABS systems as of right now. Unlike traditional funds that invest in hundreds of companies, Fundracer is focusing on just around 10 to 15 startups ideally. And in the conversation, Gerard discusses their investment approach and their criteria for investing. This is the Business of Cycling podcast. Thank you so much for coming on today. We had kind of, you've been on the pod before, and I guess, I wanted to talk with you. I wanted to hear about your new project. I know it's really exciting. It's kind of unique for the industry, Fundracer. So I guess maybe just to get started, do you want to just tell me a little bit about the project and kind of how it came about, and maybe we can then jump into hearing a little bit about the team that you've assembled, but how did this come about?
Yeah, so Fundracer is an investment fund that focuses on micromobility. So, think smaller than a car and roughly the size of a bike or a bit bigger. And I mean, there's many reasons why this came about. And so the three main partners are Rene Wiertz, who I know from 3T, and then Andy Ording, who most people know from Zipp, and then myself. And the thing is, when you've been in an industry for a while and you've had some success and maybe sold a company or a couple of companies, then people tend to contact you to ask if you maybe want to put some money into their new venture. And they come with some idea, doesn't matter what it is, right? A new helmet or what have you. And then it always sounds like a great idea, but and so you may decide to put some money into that or not. But it's very hard to really make good structured decisions just on your own. It's just a lot of work to do that. So we talked about it a bit before to sort of work together and what kind of things we would do or not do. And then that morphed into setting up a proper official investment fund. And so now if somebody comes with an interesting idea for a helmet, then we say, okay, what's going on in helmets today? So then we may look at 10, 15 helmet companies that are starting up, all with different ideas, different technologies, and we will talk to all of them and investigate really that whole market and see which one of those we think is the best opportunity. And of course, often that's not the first one who contacted you, but one of those other ones. So by doing it in a much more structured way, we could just make better investment decisions. And then sort of that was the initial idea, and then from that, of course, came the fact that we also know a lot of other people in the industry who said, okay, we'd like to put some money in that fund as well. So then it really became a proper investment fund. So of course the three of us put the start money in and a significant amount of money in, and then other people from the industry but also outside of the industry became limited partners as it's called. So they are financial investors, but they don't do the day-to-day running of the fund.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I guess, that you guys, all three of you were entrepreneurs, all three of you have had exits. So you all three of you were probably in a situation where it's like, I can't do this by myself, or at least it's frustrating probably to have to try and evaluate all these things on your own. So it seems like a really good fit. And of course, with Rene, you had worked for many years with 3T. With Andy, was it someone that you already knew, and has that been was that kind of a natural fit as well?
Yeah, so Rene I've known since 2007, since he was part of the group that bought 3T out of sort of its ashes. And so he first brought it back as a parts company and then later a complete bike company. And as a parts company, I think I was his first OEM customer as Cervelo. And then later I joined 3T, of course, for real when we turned it into a bike company. And of course, it's interesting because his background before he went to 3T, he was not from the bike industry. He used to work at Philips Electronics. And one of the roles there was mergers and acquisitions. So he's actually done all this stuff, like evaluating companies and figuring out which one, has the best potential. And in that case, of course, the best fit with Philips Electronics. But a lot of the principles, of course, are the same. With Andy, so Andy, I knew from his time at Zipp, where, of course, Cervelo and Zipp sort of grew in parallel. Like we both came from a very strong triathlon background that went into road. We started sponsoring, top level pro teams at the same time, the same team also, like we went to Team CSC sort of together. And, which, just we were, I guess, partners in misery in many of those situations, just learning as we went along. But also, I was always interested in carbon manufacturing. Like, at Cervelo, we wanted to do these kind of things. And so I'd also been to Zipp, and that was really the most impressive carbon manufacturing plant that I've ever seen, I think. And just the way he ran that, really like clockwork, is just very, very impressive. So, that kind of, he's just a really structured guy and very, very methodical, just precise guy, which is, at a level that you don't often see in the bike industry, let's put it that way. And that's also then when we started work, like we really, we were, I'd say we're friends, but we're very different and we have very different strengths. So, with the three of us, we figured, okay, we can really help these startups in the bike industry and, the adjacent industries as long as they're micromobility. So, that sort of made it logical to work together on this and not just invest, but also sort of speak, offer our services and our knowledge and our background to actually help these companies rather than just putting money in and then, leading back to see what happens.
Well, I think it sounds like a dangerous mix of professional experience, which must be really fun to see come together. So I guess now you've got the team. This was a little over 1 year ago, right? Was when you guys started the fund?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the three general partners. And then the overall team is actually six people. So there are some other partners that are for specific parts of the business. So we have Rene Wiertz, who, has had multiple investment funds that he's set up and he's managing like 400 million right now, something like that. And so he helps us a lot with how to structure the fund, like all the legal requirements and the filing requirements and making sure that, everything you do is done correctly and yeah, the way it should be. And then we have Annika Fischer, and she has a background in finance, more the financial side of companies of different sizes. And so she helps us. There's often when you invest in these companies at the stage we do, they're just about to start to generate revenue. So they've come from doing 100% product and not really worrying about anything. And now all of a sudden you need to really have a structure in finance so that, you can send out invoices and maybe get the money eventually and go to the banks and have the proper reporting so that the banks will give you working capital, all these kind of things. So she can really help some of these companies that are not at that stage yet to get there quickly and be more successful that way. And then we have Mio Suzuki, who is really, has a lot of experience in deep tech. So she helps us to evaluate, parts of the market like, AI powered cameras or things like that she's really seen a lot of. And she's previously worked at Trek and Specialized. And so she has a bicycle background, but also really a deep tech background.
So how do you coordinate? Because it sounds like this is a remote native kind of project where everybody's kind of working remotely. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how,
So yeah. So the three general partners. So we're also the investment committee. So we're the three of us, judge every investment, and we do that, on a unanimous basis. So one of the three doesn't really see how this would work, then we do not invest. And so we have a meeting every week where we go through, prospective companies to invest in, where, one of us, often Rene, will have done some pre-work already and had first meetings with them. And then so, that once a week, some of these companies will present to us and we will discuss then amongst ourselves, whether we think this is something interesting to go further on. And so if that's the case, we will have a couple more calls usually with these companies and then end up with, a term sheet, which is sort of a little one step further than a letter of intent. So it already show, okay, we're interested in investing, if all the things you said actually turn out to be correct when we go do due diligence, and these would be the terms and things like that. So yeah, it's a lot remote. I mean, we see each other at these due diligence visits. So we visit all these companies before we would invest. So they are usually 2 out of the 3 will go to these companies to take a closer look. So that's where we see each other and trade shows and all these other things. But yeah, the day to day is remote work.
It sounds like sort of a Shark Tank vibe. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes and no. I mean, I think one of the big differences, but with Shark Tank and with a lot of investment funds is that we really, we come all from this very specific industry and we invest only in this industry. So we invest only what we truly know. Like there's no people here like Shark Tank, where some people might claim to know everything about everything, right? So we don't have that, that mistaken idea about our own
Sure, no, of
capabilities.
course.
So,
But the
so
vetting is
the
similar, I
vetting
presume.
the vetting is similar, but I mean, yeah, on TV maybe that lasts 15 minutes, right? So this goes a lot deeper than that. And of course, there you have all these very different things, and then you pick one. Whereas we oftentimes really go into a certain market segment and really, flush that out and saying, okay, we want to see 15 companies that are very similar and then compare them rather than, I'm going to invest in soap or in a tricycle or in a whatever outdoor spectacle or like there's all, a very wide variety of things, right? So we have it really, we go specifically into helmets, into AI monitors, into, when we can, and then, compare them.
So what are some categories that you're seeing that have the most interesting opportunities right now that you've seen kind of the market? Where is the growth happening, I guess, in your
Yeah.
eyes and in the fund's eyes?
So, I mean, so within micromobility, we focus on 3 areas. And by far the most important, as it turns out, is safety. Everything's safety related. So that can be, passive safety as in a helmet that, hopefully protects you when it's sort of already too late. And then there's these active safety systems like a, rear view or front view a camera that with AI technology is able to not only detect that there's a car coming from the left or a motorcycle from the right, but also can judge, where is it going? Is it really a problem? And so it's really way beyond, let's say, what people may know a Garmin Varia, if listeners to your podcast. So that tells you like, okay, beep, there's a car coming from behind. But what you really want to know, okay, is it staying in its lane or is it about to veer, off the road and hit me on the shoulder that I'm riding on, right? So with this sort of more modern camera technology, it can really tell you, where all these things are going and only alert you to the ones that are potentially a problem. So you see that already, of course, also in cars, but the car technology is just way too complicated and too heavy, too expensive to ever be mass adopted in bicycle. And when you start to try and dumb that down, it doesn't really work. So we're looking more at systems that start from scratch for smaller two-wheel vehicles, lower priced, and then see what that technology leads for. So there, yeah, we probably saw 15 companies in that space, and then in the end invested in one that really, had the detection software was the really at the highest level. Because that's another thing, right? Is that a software thing or is that a hardware thing? You need a camera, you need the software, and then in the end you have to say, okay, lots of people can make the camera, but the proper AI models to detect the right thing at the right time, that's really the secret sauce. So that's what we're going to go for.
So safety, so it sounds like, yeah, safety is going to bring more inclusion. It sounds like performance. If I had to guess, I mean, looking from the outside, performance, road gravel, those kind of traditional enthusiast topics, while be it sexy, probably there isn't as much opportunity there. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, there's not as much. I mean, when you look at micromobility, and specifically if we pull it back to bicycles, right, then of course commuting is a bigger market than performance market. And when you see, any survey, like there's tons of them, and the questions aren't always the same, but basically when the question is why do you not ride or why do you not ride more, then safety is always by far the number one issue, right? And some of that is infrastructure, which we can do not much about, right? But that's slowly improving as well in many parts of the world. And part of that is that, okay, I know I need to wear a helmet, but it's ugly, or where do I leave it when I'm at work or when I'm at that restaurant or wherever I was riding. And so for that, for example, we invested in Newton helmets, which is a foldable helmet Also after looking at, air-filled helmets and all these different kind of folding things. And so that's certainly one thing where that can help. But, there's all these safety things. And yeah, I think, for the fund, it's interesting, but I think also for society in general, it's interesting if we can do something to take away that fear, right, of cycling being dangerous and allowing people to just ride more. On the performance side, of course, it's not always the same kind of potential to really, skyrocket. I mean, if you just start another gravel bike company today, it might succeed, it might not, but it's kind of hard to see how you really would know in advance that that's going to go, crazy in growth, right?
It's tough,
Whereas,
yeah. Well, if you're
for
going to
example,
for
yeah,
startups, I guess so it's sort of natural that you guys would be attracted more towards underdeveloped markets. I guess in cycling, being in cycling, I see so many, you continually see like the enthusiast side, it's so sexy and that's what everybody talks about. And so like that's kind of where your attention is drawn. But from an investment standpoint and from startup standpoint, you have to be sort of deliberate and strategic about it, it sounds like.
well, I think also the people that are drawn to that performance side are people who are already in cycling, right? And so we also see that a lot of those startups that are in performance, indeed they have a cycling background, but the people that come, with new ideas on safety and all those things are often people who don't come at all from the cycling background, right? That Luna, the AI video company we invested in, that's just 12 PhDs sitting in a room going like, okay, what problem are we going to solve with this stuff that we actually know a lot about, which is, these AI algorithms. And so they decided on that, right? And of course, a couple of them commute to work, and it's not that they don't like cycling, but it's not what you would expect, the kind of people who start a gravel bike company, right? So, and the same with so far, three of our investments are really in the safety side. And the third one is Blue Brake, which is ABS for bicycles, right? Which is another thing. If you want to prevent skidding of your bike or you're afraid of that, then ABS is just a logical step. First, because it really works technically. And second, because, hey, I have that in my car. Why would I not want that on my bike? Right? And that, of course, is also you can see if you can get the pricing right and the distribution right, then you could really end up in a world where above a certain price level, which is a pretty low price level and up, every bike, 5 or 10 years from now will have ABS. So that has that obviously more potential than a gravel
Sure.
bike company.
So can you give us an idea of the amount of investment that you guys do, kind of on the low end and the high end and in general, is there like an average amount that you guys are contributing?
Yeah, so the initial investment in a company will be between 500,000 and a couple million.
Wow.
And there could be, add-on investments like for what, when the next round comes, right? We might participate again, and then we could add another couple million into such a company. I mean, there are also some companies that just need the initial investment and then they can finance themselves. It just depends a little bit, of course, on how capital intensive that particular company is. So, and then, I mean, the other thing that we really focus on is we were only trying to have 10 or 15 companies in the fund. Like there are a lot of funds that will put 100 or 200 companies that they put money in. And then, of course, all you can do is sit back and see, which one becomes a $1 billion fund and which ones go bankrupt and hope that it averages out to be a nice return. But because we really, think we have something to offer, we're really looking at these companies, like, okay, where can we add value beyond the money? And that means it's also very time intensive. So we cannot do that with 100 companies. So we do that with 10 or 15 companies.
So I guess then what that sort of investment, how much are you guys looking to own then at that point in percentage?
So, I mean, it really obviously depends from deal to deal, but the principle is that we're looking at a sizable minority stake. So we don't
Okay.
want to be majority shareholders, but we don't want to own 1% of something either. That just doesn't make any sense for us to put the work in then, of course. And I mean that size of the investment and it's just it makes sense for the companies that we invest in, right? I mean, of course, if they haven't generated revenue at all yet, then the valuation is obviously also not so high yet. But there are also some companies that may already have a couple of years of revenue, so they're already a bit more valuable.
Sure, sure. And so in terms of on the sort of support side of things, do you guys then operationally get involved with these companies?
So usually we will have a board seat. So one of the three of us will be on the board of these companies, just depending on geography, because of course Rene is in the south of Europe, I'm in the north, Andy is in the States. So depending on geography wise, what makes sense, or the topic of the of this and the kind of support they need, right? If they need to set up a lot of manufacturing, then it's more logical that it's Andy. Whereas if they need to maybe do follow-on acquisitions, then that's Rene's wheelhouse. So it all depends. But yeah, one of us will be on the board and we'll be in very regular contact with them. And that depends, right? There are companies that there'll be daily contact, and there are companies that are already run very competently by their current CEO, already has this whole plan and it's already running like clockwork. And maybe there's just a weekly call and it depends on what they need, right? So in general, we offer a go-to-market strategy or the whole distribution sales, or some people need help with sourcing because they have a great product, but it's just too expensive the way it's made. So, or, hiring additional talent and how to structure that and how to find these people. And so we can help them find the right people, or we may know already some of the, so it depends also what kind of support they need, which one of the three gets sort of connected with them. And it still means that all three of us can help this company, but there's just one, who's running point and has the most contact
Sure. And so
with this.
so you sort of divide up the at least the board seats, and then you'll each kind of have a territory, so to speak. And you guys will then meet, like you said, weekly or bi-weekly to then kind of exchange, okay, this is going, this is how this is going, these are the challenges. And so that way you're kind of keeping each other updated. And so I guess, yeah, that does make sense that you would have sort of a ceiling on this. Would this be considered pre-seed or seed? Or I guess I'm not super into the investment world, but
Yeah,
what
I guess they would
stage?
call it C to Series A.
Okay.
So, but I mean, yeah, not everybody has the same definition of these things. So for us, it's we're around the start of generating revenue. So it could be just before, like maybe there's still some last tests that need to be passed, and then you can start to sell, or they've already been selling for a bit, but maybe not as well as they thought. Because you have a lot of these, I mean, I remember this. When you start a new product and you're working on this product for a long time, I mean, you just know this is the greatest product ever, and then you have to start to sell it, and you realize that other people don't agree, or they have something better to do than look at your fantastically amazing product, right? So then when the reality hits, then they realize, oh, I really need to, getting to the revenue point is actually not that easy. So that's the perfect point for us to come in and really help them with distribution network and all these kind of things.
What is for these types of startups, I guess, what are kind of the two or three real kind of litmus tests that you guys are doing? Like what in your eyes, what is the perfect investment? Like what are some of the
I,
characteristics you guys are really looking for?
I mean, I think the lamest statement in an investment world is that you invest in people, but it's true.
Okay.
You know, it's I mean, it's very hard to change people, right? So if the right people aren't there, and especially, when, of course, these are the founders, they're not likely to leave the company anytime soon. So these founders are not capable of running and growing this business. It's going to be a very unpleasant experience, right? I mean, you're not going to easily replace the founder with some new outside CEO unless the founder also thinks, that would be better. And as these founders are young, and they tend to still think they could do everything themselves. So if you come across a very interesting company, but you think that person is not going to be able to do this, then it's very hard to invest in such a company. So I think founders who are capable, but also are realistic about what they're not capable of, that is probably certainly, yeah, one of the two, three, as you say, key things. I mean, and then of course the product they make, be it software or hardware. I mean, just seeing how that is in the market, what else is out there, is it protected through,
Is there a moat?
patents or anything like that. So that's obviously, I mean, yeah, if you don't have anything to sell, it becomes very
No, of
difficult as
course. Yeah,
well
product
as a
market fit
company.
is a
So I
given.
mean that's logical, which of course, I mean it's a given, but it's also very difficult because usually the kind of companies we're
Subjective.
looking at are making stuff that nobody yet knows they need, right? Or doesn't exist yet. It's not, but that's the whole idea. Like to have a lot of potential, it can't be a product that 100 people are already making, right? So if nobody's making it yet, then you also don't know if anybody's going to buy it. So I think, yeah, the product and the people, I mean, that's the logical part. And then just some level of realism is, I mean, I've never seen a forecast I didn't like, right? I mean, the forecasts are always fantastic, but you know, I've made those forecasts too, so I know how tempting it is to think the sky is the limit. But some realism about what that product can do and how quickly it goes, and or having a really good openness to listen to input on that topic, I think would be the other, and especially nowadays, I mean, that's a lot harder now than it was maybe 10, 20 years ago, where there's so many ways to sell a product, right? Do you go direct to consumer? Do you go direct to dealer? Do you do distributors? Do you do OEM? I mean, there's so many ways, and you can't do them all. And we see that, so basically what that boils down to, and maybe is really the third one, is that are these people focused, right? There are a lot of people that are just drowning in opportunity, right? There's people, anytime something comes along, you go, oh, we got to jump on that. We got to really, but it's like, hey, there'll be another one tomorrow, another opportunity tomorrow. That's not your issue. You have to pick one and actually make a success out of it. That's much more important. So that focus and not, all right, but the next product or the next product, it's like, well, you don't need the next product if the first one sells well.
So in terms of like go to market, it feels like because you're a product person, and when you're looking at these products, is the go to market, is the distribution getting momentum and getting sales going? Is that the biggest challenge for the most part, in your opinion, in your view, I guess, and what you've like, what is the biggest challenge
Yeah, I
aside from?
think I think certainly it's to get those first sales and to get some visibility and to just get going, and to switch from that mode of, oh, let's just make the product a little bit better, a little bit better. I mean, that's not going to help the sales as much in the end as just having sales, right? So yeah, I would say, and a big part of that with these people is that they don't even know who they're going to sell to yet. Right. So we've seen companies, even invested in companies that are going like, oh, we had this meeting with this really impressive company, and the meeting was really good. And at that meeting, and they had hundreds, literally hundreds of meetings. They were all very good, and sales were zero, right? Because it's like, and when we looked at it, I was like, well, the reason sales are zero is because the people you're talking to, they love the technology, the general, but they don't really know what you're selling, like what they still have to do themselves and what part you've solved for them. So then for a product manager, go like, I mean, this sounds great, but I have no idea how to put this on my bike. So, I'll pass. So no, we need to package what you have to offer and be clear. This is what we deliver. This is what you get from elsewhere, and together that makes this fantastic solution. And so,
So the sales,
that's
it's the sales side in your experience that like a lot of these entrepreneurs, like they're really deep into the product, but then when it gets to distribution, sales, and actually putting this product into the market, that's typically where some of the help is needed.
Yeah, but that's of course not just a function of the fact that this is what companies are struggling with. It's also a function of the fact that we are talking to companies who are about to generate revenue. So clearly their main issue is, how do I generate revenue, right? So it's not that 90% of the companies in the world have a problem with that, but the ones that figured it out already by themselves long ago, I mean,
Yeah, they
they're
wouldn't be
not
talking
they're
to
not
you.
coming to us. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and how are you able to provide that support from the distribution and sales side? Like, is that something that will you guys do distribution introductions? Like having your experience with the distribution network, is that sort of or also on the marketing side, is it both distribution, like from sales as well as marketing?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything they need. And in the end, I mean, these companies, they have to do that themselves, right? I mean, it's not like we will write the marketing and sales plan for them, but we will probe them, ask them questions, and help them and give suggestions so that they can figure out, okay, this is the best fit of how to bring our product to market. And then, yeah, if they say, okay, that it has to be through distribution or it has to be through OEM, then of course we can introduce them to, hundreds of people that can potentially be interested in their product. So we will make those introductions, but again, from there on, it's the company themselves that will have to then convince these OEMs and these distributors that their product is worthwhile, right? We can only help them so far, but of course, if we can set up a phone call in 5 minutes where it takes them half a year or a year to talk to the same person, then that's a big benefit.
Look, Gerard, like I'm looking at you from the outside here. I'm a little bit envious. I think this is a really cool opportunity that you've created for yourself and for your partners to be able to come in. Me personally, having this podcast, as you can tell, I'm really interested in the commercial and the business side of cycling. So yeah, congratulations on this. This is really cool.
Well, you
I'm
can
ex
join, you know that, right? You know how it works with investment funds, so you can join.
Well, let me get the flywheel spinning a little faster before I can join. But yeah, super cool, and I'm excited, and I hope we can, I hope we can have more conversations down the road to hear more about it because it feels like you guys are very close to the core of the business. And
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing for us, like for me personally, right? So last year we looked at 600 companies. When you're really just running a bike company or something, you don't see anywhere near that sort of breadth of what's going in the industry, right? So I've learned so much about the industry from just seeing all these startups and what they're trying to do. And I mean, of course, that also shows that you cannot do this by yourself. You have to do this as a fund. Like no individual can look at 600 companies to pick the best one to put some money into. But yeah, that's what makes it interesting, and that's also what makes me really very excited about our industry again. That there is so much going on. It's really yeah, it's really very nice to see.
well, I'm happy that you proposed to come, to speak today, and I'm glad we get to share this because I think it's an important part of the industry right now. So
Well, yeah, I mean it's really at a difficult point, right, for these companies as well. So, I mean, when these companies are bigger, then it's not so difficult to attract money a lot of times. But just at this stage where there's just so much uncertainty, it is very hard for outside investors also to put the money in, right? Because how do they judge these companies? They can't. So a lot of these companies are struggling and will disappear again, right? And that's also something we saw with Blue Break. I mean, that was an eight-figure deal, right? That was a really, really big ticket size. But there was a large investment fund that wanted to invest in this, but they said like we can't really judge this opportunity. So they said we'll do it together with Fundracer. And we did all the technical due diligence, they did the financial due diligence. But they also said in the end, like, hey, we're not going to do it if you're not going to do it. So we need to understand that, the industry people give this a thumbs up, and then we will come with our bag of money and support it.
well, man, I'm really glad that you guys are doing this, and I look forward to hearing more about it in the future.
Sounds
So,
good.
yeah, so if people that are listening or that are in the network want to reach out, maybe invest or pitch, how can they reach you?
I think the easiest is to just go to the website, Fundracer, so Fundracer Capital, and there you can see you can contact us depending on who you want to talk to, whether it's, to put money in or to take money out. So that's probably the easiest way to, and in general, to keep up the speed with what we're investing in and what else we're doing.
Okay. Thanks, Gerard. It was great talking to you again today.
Thanks, Wyatt.